It is time for more response videos, and this one is to Andrew Wood's video. I believe it was called Double Out Buckshot to Your Nugget. That's what he called it. And so you rank yourself as a role player in certain stats, in certain categories, and say where you lie upon the spectrum of RPGs. Now, the first stat is stamina. And with this one, I put myself at 85 to 90. It's a bit nebulous, I'm not sure exactly where I lie, because usually my sessions will go from 8 to 10 hours, probably 12 as an outlier. This is mostly because, if I'm lucky, I can get a game going on a monthly schedule. And so I want to squeeze as much time out of each session as possible. And it's usually outside forces that will cut it short. My friends are busy. They don't want to continue as long as I do. And so since I annoy my friends by wanting to continue longer than they do, I rank my stamina as being a high stat. Now, the second one is role-playing / immersion. Where do you fall on that? I put myself at a 90 in this. Immersion is important to me. Role-playing in a role-playing game is important to me because I'm a big giant weirdo. Now, I lose points in this for, I find myself asking questions. Now, as a player, I'll ask out-of-character questions like, we're in Cormier, or something like that, in Forgotten Realms. And I'm like, oh, my character, I've lived in Cormier for like 20 years, but, I'm not totally familiar with the setting. What do humans in this land, like, what do they think about the dwarves, and what do they think about the gnomes? That sort of thing. Like, it's an out-of-character question, but it's an in-world question. And, I'm just asking that to get a better feel for the game. And so, it's in service to the game, but it's not being in character all the time. So, I do what I can to stay in character, but I'm also trying to facilitate the game and keep it fleshed out for both my character and everyone around. And now, as a GM, I might lose some points for immersion because sometimes I'll describe a character or location in out-of-character terms. Like, for example, in a Dark Sun game, an arid planet, a desert planet. Myself and all my friends, we've been to Vasquez Rocks, the famous, rocky desert that is in, every Star Trek episode and half of every movie ever made. And so, when I'm talking to them, I'll say, it's like this area of Vasquez Rocks, or it's like this. And, it's an out-of-character term to say it looks like Vasquez Rocks, but we know exactly what that means. So in one half a sentence, they get 1,000 words, something like that. And I might describe a character as being like, oh, the merchant prince, he looks like Ving Rhames, or something like that. So, in an instance, you're able to visualize this character. But at the same time, someone might get upset that in a fantasy game, I've described someone as looking like Ving Rhames. So that's why I put myself at a 90 in immersion, because it's important to me, but certain questions and maybe certain descriptions might lower that stat a bit. Now, the next stat is Roll-Playa, as in rolling the dice. Now, I put myself at a 12 in this because I'm not really the player that likes to stack numbers upon more numbers, so my big numbers can smash your numbers. It's not really my style, but I defy anyone not to get that visceral thrill when you see that natural 20, or to feel that cold pit in your stomach when you see that natural 1. A critical hit in combat, or an amazing skill roll, or perhaps a critical fumble and you fall off the mountainside. These are interesting things that come up, and if anything else, when you get that critical hit in combat, that gives you a chance to do some nasty, vivid, squishy, bloody description for what you do to that poor, poor orc before you take his treasure. No, that's bugbears. Take the bugbear's treasure. So the next stat is work. How much work do you put into a game? I put myself at 75. Now, I do a lot of planning. I do a lot of pre-game work because I find that a lot of planning allows me to improvise with greater expediency when the game is going, and that's very important. I like to be very flexible in a game. So, I'll do a lot of preparation, but my sloth perhaps keeps me from being really high in the stat, like 85 to 95. I have notebooks with lots of information. I have the background for each campaign, but I don't have the reams upon reams of mysterious tomes that I would assume Andrew Wood, the progenitor of this video, has. I can imagine that Andrew Wood's notebooks look like John Doe's from Seven. You know, just the contents of one man's mind spelled out onto paper with no rhyme or reason. That's what I imagine his RPG notebooks to look like. So the next stat is, how similar are your characters to you? This is very low. For me, I put it at a 10. Now, some people like having their characters be like themselves. They're like, oh yeah, my character's like me, except, you know, he's 4 inches taller, he's got like 20 more pounds of muscle, and he's got a dick like a fire hydrant. It's not really my style. I actually like it. I am drawn to characters that are very different from me. You know, that is what is more interesting to me, to play someone who is different. And so, you know, when you think about it, it's like, Anthony Hopkins isn't actually a cannibal. You know, Patrick Stewart isn't actually a star captain, and Seth Rogen isn't actually a pothead slacker. No, wait, scratch that last one. So, you know, actors are often drawn to characters that are different from them, and so when I'm doing an RPG, I'm drawn to characters who are different than me. And I like to keep them different from each other so that I've got this myriad of characters to use. So, that's that stat. And the next one is Enforcer. This is, of course, where I'm a bit low. It should be higher, I do realize this, but it hasn't really come up that much. I haven't really had call to be an enforcer that much. See, my gaming group is, you know, my friends that I've known for years and years and decades and decades. So when they're acting a damn fool, which is very rare, you know, it doesn't take much to keep the game back on track. So yes, my enforcer stat is a bit low, but I just haven't really had call for it to be high. And now we come to the next stat, Showman. I easily put myself at 95 on this. You know, some people when they create their character, they want to be the best. They want to have the highest numbers and stack those numbers. But me, I'm not trying to have the best character. I'm trying to have the favorite character. I'm trying to be everyone's favorite player after that game session. I want to be the most memorable, the most interesting, and the most entertaining character. Now, you know, I want to create a statue of my character in your mind that is 300 feet tall, and it says, remember me, and then shoots out a gout of flame, remember me, because I am woefully aware of my own mortality. It's cold in here. But, that said, I don't want to ruin other people's scenes. I'm a showman, yes, I'm here to entertain everyone at the table, but I'm not going to steal from anyone else. You see, in the most recent example, in a Game of Thrones game, I was playing a warrior type. He's in full scale mail, and he's a dangerous melee combatant. Another player was a master fencer, a bravosi. The third player was a ranger type of guy, a master huntsman. And so our three characters in a forest clearing are beset by a huge pack of wolves. Now, I know, both in character and out of character, I can destroy these wolves. It's a very easy opponent to fight in combat when you're in full scale mail and you have a big old shield and a sword. But considering that my brother was playing this ranger, I, you know, as an out of character decision, I decided to back off on this and just sort of draw my weapon and wait as he went and used his animal Ken skill to, you know, calm an entire pack of wolves with nothing but his eyes and a gesture and his force of will. And to me, that was a more interesting scene than a very one-sided combat against some wolves. And so this was fairly early in the game, and so our characters got to see, like, whoa, this guy really knows how to handle animals. And so that stuck with us. And so I'm a showman, but I also like to facilitate the showman aspects of others. So, the next stat is Fumbler, and this is low for me. It is a 15. I have not fumbled a game myself, but I must admit, I am guilty of a sin of inaction. I have allowed fumbling to happen around me. Now, I still like to facilitate and fix games that I enjoy if I see them perhaps going down the tubes. You know, I try and save them when I can, but I've still allowed some games to fail around me that I'm not proud of. But my fumbling stat is low at 15. The next stat is Bard. Now this is a stat that used to be a bit lower, now it's 80 is what I'm going to put myself at. I would like it to be higher. I'm trying to work on this Bard stat. Now, as far as artwork and maps and drawing other people's characters if they haven't drawn them, these are all things that I've done. These are all things that I've been doing for a long time. But it is something I need to work on is adding music to the game. I haven't really brought in too much music. And so having things like theme music for the characters, that's something that I really want to bring to the game. And I haven't quite done it yet to very good effect. So I'm working on this Bard stat. The next is Challenger. How much do you challenge yourself? Now, this is an interesting one. I put myself at 80 at this one, a high stat, because I never actually thought to myself, oh, I'm going to take on the challenge of this difficult character. I'm going to roleplay this centuries-old devil or this genie with immense power. I do those things, yes, but I didn't do it because I'm like, oh, I'm going to challenge myself to make the game better. I did it, actually, with the thought of entertaining people, to bring something new and interesting to the story. You know, I'll take an imp, and the imp is going to talk like this. Now, when an imp talks like Bruce from Family Guy, no one is going to be scared of him. So this allows him to sneak into your mind, and then, without you knowing it, steal your soul by tempting you to evil actions. Oh no! And so, you know, I'm like, oh yeah, this sort of silly little imp that doesn't seem like a threat at all, but in fact, he's working the players from the very get-go, and he's got this amazing foresight, and he uses his perceived weakness as his massive strength, and he causes temptation and chaos, well, not chaos, law, wherever he goes. And so it's things like that that perhaps unconsciously I took on the challenge of subverting tropes and bringing in interesting characters. And so those are my RPG stats, and this has been the Double Aught video response.